The stars were quiet that night, shining across the deep black sky.
Yeah.
Inside the palace lived Princess Leora, a young ruler known for her calm mind and gentle pride. They believed no one could match their wisdom or their beauty. Leora had never met anyone who made her doubt that belief. That changed when her guards brought her a report one morning. They had found a small old spaceship drifting near the edge of their region. The ship looked broken, its engines weak, and its metal blackened from burns. The guards expected it to be empty, but they found someone inside, a man. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his face rough and sunburned. He hesitated. Just pilot for exploration. Beginner, I guess. What could a beginner from an unknown world possibly know about science or space travel? Even Leora hid a faint smile at the idea. He must have been foolish or very lucky to come so far. Still, she ordered her attendants to treat him kindly. His ship was stored for repair, and he was given a small room near the lower courts. She was curious to talk more with this human. There was something unusual in the calm way he looked at everything. It was not pride or arrogance. It was quiet confidence, like a man who had faced storms and knew how to walk out of them. That evening, she called for him again. Outside the palace windows, lights shimmered like rivers in the air. She asked him about his homeworld. "It's not peaceful," Ethan said. "We have oceans and forests and cities. We also have fire, floods, earthquakes, and storms. We learned to survive because the world never gave us anything easy." Leora watched his hands as he spoke. They were scarred, used to work unlike the smooth fingers of her people. "You sound proud of hardship," she said. He shook his head. "Not proud, just used to it. We don't look for danger, but we don't hide from it either." His simple words carried a strange weight. Leora found herself staring at him longer than she meant to. Later that night, she met with her council. Her chief advisor, a gray-haired man named Darren Holt, was not happy. He is no threat. Let us not waste attention on a lost wanderer. But as the meeting ended, Leora stood by the window and looked out at the sea of stars. Beginner or not, Ethan Cole had come from beyond known borders, through chaos and fire, and still found his way here. Her world had known peace for hundreds of years. It had forgotten what danger looked like. For the first time, Leora wondered if her people had become too comfortable. Meanwhile, in his quiet guest room, Ethan watched the foreign sky through a glass panel. Then he closed his eyes and rested, ready for whatever test tomorrow would bring. The next morning, the palace woke to the sound of drums and soft bells. It was a special day, the beginning of the yearly trials. These trials tested strength, skill, and heart. Warriors from across the kingdom came to prove who among them was most worthy to serve in the royal guard. Ethan watched from the side, standing near a tall guard. He asked quietly, "Are these real fights?" The guard smiled. "Not quite. They show control and courage, not death." When Princess Leora entered the hall, all sound disappeared. The light from above touched her silver gown, and her presence alone made every soldier bow. But when she saw Ethan standing near the edge of the crowd, her eyes lingered on him. She remembered his strange calm the day before. Something inside her wanted to test whether that calm came from ignorance or from something deeper. She turned to her advisors. "Let the visitor join the trials," she said. Everyone was shocked. Duran looked alarmed. "Your Majesty, he is not trained in our ways. He will fail." Ethan lifted one eyebrow, realizing what was meant. "Join?" he asked, surprised. Leora nodded. "You called yourself a beginner. Then let us see how much a beginner from your world can do." A playful murmur swept through the hall. For a moment Ethan considered refusing, but something about her steady gaze made him grin. "All right," he said. "Why not?" The first test was simple balance on a narrow bar that floated above a pit of rising mist. The trick was not to move too fast or too slow, to match the rhythm of the shifting air. Many contestants trained for years to master it. Ethan stepped up, feeling the faint vibration under his boots. He took a deep breath, raised his arms slightly, and began to walk. His steps were clumsy at first, but his body learned quickly. His movements adjusted with each change of the bar's surface. When he reached the other side, there was no grand jump or dramatic pose, only quiet success. A few nobles clapped politely, surprised. Leora watched without a word. The next challenge tested speed and logic. Contestants had to move through a maze with moving walls that opened and closed at random intervals. Most rushed through impatiently. Ethan did not. He paused, studied the pattern for a few seconds, then walked at an even pace, sliding through gaps just before they would close. His mind worked like an old pilot studying wind currents. When he came out the other side unharmed and ahead of the timed clock, more whispers filled the stands. By the third trial, lifting and moving weighted blocks using both mind and machine, Ethan had gained attention from nearly everyone in the hall. Unlike the others who used thin mechanical gloves to enhance their strength, he worked barehanded. He used simple leverage with metal rods and his own body weight. Slow and steady, he moved each piece into place. When the bell rang to end the trial, he nodded politely to the judges and stepped aside, breathing heavily but smiling. Princess Leora leaned toward Duran. "He adapts," she said softly. Duran frowned. "Or he is lucky." Yet deep down, the princess knew what she saw was more than luck. It was instinct, the kind born from struggle and survival. After the trials ended, Leora walked down from the judge's platform. The others followed her, eager to congratulate their own warriors. Ethan wiped sweat from his forehead, turning as she approached. "You did not need to win," she told him, her voice gentler now. "You were supposed to learn." "I did learn," he said, smiling. "I learned that your people are very good at watching." She stared at him, unsure if that was meant as praise or challenge. "And what did you see?" Ethan looked around at the spotless marble walls and shimmering lights. "Perfection," he said. "But perfection can be fragile. You can polish a gem too long until it cracks." Leora felt a chill. "You speak strangely for someone who called himself a beginner." Ethan shrugged slightly. "Where I come from, beginners have to learn fast. The world doesn't wait for slow learners." For a long moment they stood in silence. Then she turned and walked back to her seat. She felt a strange spark inside her chest, half annoyance, half admiration. No one in her court had ever spoken to her so openly. Meanwhile, others whispered in corners. Some envied his success, some feared he might be more dangerous than he appeared. Duran watched him carefully, did not trust this human's quiet strength. That night, as stars burned softly beyond the palace windows, Leora stood alone on her balcony. She could still see his steady eyes in her memory. His words about perfection lingered like an echo. She looked down at her peaceful city and wondered if he was right, that perhaps their safety had turned into weakness without them noticing. Far below, in his small room, Ethan looked at the sky too. He missed his crew back home, but part of him felt alive again, tested and awake. He knew something was coming, something that would prove what kind of people they all really were. 1 week later, peace across the bright city came to an end. The warning bells rang before dawn, shaking the silver towers and waking the quiet halls of the palace. Princess Leora hurried to the command room, her gown half fastened, her mind racing. When she arrived, the generals were already at their stations, speaking in rushed tones. On the wide screen above them, dark shapes moved through space toward their planet. They were huge ships, blacker than the sky, shaped like claws. No message, no signal, no introduction. Came first only, the dull hum of engines strong enough to blot out the stars. The guards bowed quickly. "Your Majesty, we do not know who they are. They destroy every satellite near them. We cannot reach their language." Leora's hands trembled slightly. "Call every defense fleet," she said. "Put the city under protection dome." In the middle of the confusion stood Ethan Cole. He had just been finishing a morning walk when the alarms blared. Now he watched the command room fill with officers and voices. He stepped forward and looked at the moving shapes on the screen. His face hardened. "These are hunters," he said. Darren Holt turned toward him sharply. "You think every problem is a hunt, human? At the military work." Ethan ignored him and pointed at the images. "Look at their movement. That's not an invasion to conquer. That's a pack trying to scare prey." The room went silent. Even the generals stared, unsure what to say. Leora walked closer. "What do you mean?" Ethan folded his arms. "Back home, we've seen species behave like this. Predators circle, make noise, see if their target runs. If you hide behind shields, they'll know you're afraid. If you strike carelessly, they'll trap you." He turned toward her. "You'll need to answer their challenge differently," Darren sneered. "And you can do better, beginner?" Ethan looked him straight in the eye. Yes, that simple word hung in the air. Leora's heart beat faster. Something inside her, a quiet sense of danger and hope, urged her to listen to him. "Explain," she said firmly. Ethan stepped toward the map table. "Your fleets are fast, but spread too thin. Bring them closer, here and here." He pointed to 2 empty sectors near the planet's dark side. "We'll keep our lights dim and use the planet's shadow. They come close enough? Release decoy beacons here. Make them think the sky is full of small, easy targets. When they rush in, we come out of the shadow behind them." The generals murmured. The plan was simple, but risky. They had never used darkness to their advantage. They always fought with bright power and open ceremony. Leora studied his face. His eyes were calm but sharp. "If your plan fails," she said quietly, "they will destroy us." Ethan nodded. "Then we'll fail fighting, not hiding." That was the moment she made her choice. "Do as he says," she ordered. Darren stepped forward. "Princess, this is madness. I cannot hand command to an outsider." Leora looked at him with a steady gaze. "I am not handing over command. I am testing courage, which our enemy cannot measure by rank." Within an hour, the fleets moved silently into the shadow side of the planet. The sky turned black as lights dimmed. The massive predator ships drew closer, their shapes gliding like sharks through deep water. Ethan joined the small interceptor wing. He climbed aboard one of the slim fighters, its engine humming low. His hands moved across the controls with ease born of long practice. Leora watched from the command post, her eyes locked on his ship's signal. When the enemy ships entered the trap, the decoy beacons lit up like falling stars. The predators turned toward the fake targets, charging to attack. Out. That was when Ethan gave the signal. His voice came through the radio. Now the hidden fleet burst from the planet's shadow in a sudden wave of fire and sound. Missiles crossed the sky like burning arrows. Ethan's fighter moved through the chaos, quick and unpredictable. He didn't fly like the others. His paths were uneven, wild, based on instinct. It confused the enemy's sensors. Within minutes, the huge black ships twisted in confusion. Their formation broke. One of them suddenly turned away. Then another. The rest followed, retreating fast, disappearing into the dark beyond the stars. When silence returned, no one in the command room spoke. The sky that had once glowed red with enemy fire now lay calm again. Leora's voice finally broke the quiet. "They are fleeing." Darren's mouth hung open. "Impossible," he whispered. "No one has ever made them turn back." Ethan's fighter returned slowly, smoke trailing from its wings. When he climbed out, his clothes were scorched and his face was streaked with sweat. but his eyes were alive with the same calm fire. Leora walked toward him across the landing deck, her long gown catching the light. For a moment she forgot her crown and titles. She looked at him not as a princess, but as someone meeting the unknown with awe. "You did it," she said quietly. He shrugged, breathing deeply. "They just needed to see we bite back." She smiled slightly. "Maybe you are not a beginner after all." He grinned, tired, but still calm. "Maybe I'm just a fast learner." Far above them, the stars seemed brighter than ever. The world that had believed itself untouchable now had a new understanding. Strength was not found in perfection, but in courage. The morning after the battle was silent. The great city that once sang with horns of pride now hummed with quiet disbelief. People walked through the marble streets, whispering the same question to one another. How could a single man, a visitor from a faraway world, make the impossible happen? Princess Leora stood by the tall window of her private chamber, watching the sunrise spread across the horizon. The golden light touched the crystal towers and smooth bridges, washing away the shadows left from the night before. Inside, her mind moved a storm of thoughts. She had grown up learning that her people were above fear, and that logic and grace were their strongest shields. But what she saw the night before had shaken that belief. She had watched huge enemy ships flee from one man's bravery. Ethan Cole was supposed to be simple, untrained, even foolish. And yet when everyone else hesitated, he acted without hesitation. A knock came from the door. "Enter," she said, pulling her gown closer. Ethan stepped in slowly. His arm was wrapped with a bandage, his uniform darkened with oil and ash. His hair was a mess, and there were small burns on his neck. Still, he greeted her with that same calm tone. "You wanted to see me, Princess?" "Yes," she answered. "Come closer." As he approached, she studied him quietly. He did not seem like a hero. There were no marks of kingship or pride on him, no medals or glittering clothes. Yet she saw something even stronger, quiet strength, the kind that came from pain and endurance. "I owe you thanks," she said slowly. "You saved more than the city. You saved our pride." Ethan gave a small laugh. "I didn't do it alone. Your people fought hard." She smiled faintly. "They fought because they saw you fight. You faced death as if it was a normal thing." He looked down. "Where I come from, fear never disappears. Just learn how to walk through it." Her smile faded slightly. "We forgot how to do that long ago. We always believed safety was the same as strength. But we only stood strong as long as nothing tested us." He nodded. "Maybe you have been safe for too long." There was no insult in his voice, only kindness. That made his words sting even more. They walked together to the strategy hall. Maps and holograms still covered the long tables. Darrenholt and the other generals bowed as the princess entered. But everyone's eyes turned toward Ethan. Some held respect, others jealousy or unease. Leora announced, "Ethan Cole will stay as a special advisor." The room buzzed quietly with surprise. Duran looked up, his lips pressed tightly. "Princess," he said, "you honor a stranger for luck. We should not forget our own." She looked straight at him. "Luck does not make predators run. Courage does." No one argued further. Ethan began studying the battle reports. He pointed out weak spots in their defenses. How the enemy had tried to break their communication first, how a stronger network between planet and fleet could stop that next time. His suggestions were simple but clever. Soldiers listened. Engineers started taking notes. Even the proud generals leaned forward. After the meeting, Leora walked with him through the garden. The sky above was soft blue, filled with quiet wind. "You lead as if you never doubt," she said. "Do you never feel fear?" He gave her a thoughtful look. "Every pilot feels fear. You just can't let it make your choices. Fear is natural. Panic is not." She breathed deeply, tasting the flower's gentle scent. "You speak like an old warrior," he smiled. "I've seen enough fights to know what keeps people alive. It's not power. It's purpose." They stopped near the water fountain. She hesitated. "What is your purpose, Ethan? Why did you come so far from your home?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We humans go farther, not because we're ready, but because standing still never taught us anything. Curiosity builds us. We always want to know what's behind the next star, even if it kills us." Something moved inside her heart. That strong need to explore, it was something she had never felt herself, yet she understood its beauty. Later that evening, the city held a celebration. Thousands gathered in the main square. Lights filled the air. People sang his name. Ethan stood at the edge of the crowd, uncomfortable with the attention, while Leora raised a cup to the sky. "This man reminded us of courage," she said to the people. "He showed us that bravery does not always come from bloodlines or crowns. Sometimes it comes from simple hearts that refuse to break." The cheers that followed echoed across the stars. Ethan lowered his head slightly, half smiling. He still felt like a stranger here, yet somehow he belonged a little more than before. When night fell, he sat alone near the landing pad, looking at the stars. Leora found him there. "You could return home," she said softly. "Your mission is done." He looked at her, his eyes calm but thoughtful. "Maybe, but something tells me this isn't over yet. Predators that retreat usually come back hungrier." She nodded slowly. "Then we'll be ready together." For a long while, they said nothing, just sat side by side beneath the endless shining sky. In that quiet moment, the princess realized something. The real strength of humankind was not their weapons or machines. It was their spirit, their need to keep moving, to keep standing up again and again, no matter what waited in the dark. The weeks after the battle passed in a strange calm. The skies were quiet. The burn marks on the towers slowly repaired, and people went back to their lives. Yet deep inside the palace, there was no rest. Princess Leora could not stop thinking about what Ethan Cole had said. Predators that retreat usually come back hungrier. His words echoed in her mind each night as she looked out at the dark horizon where the stars blinked faintly. Ethan spent most of his time training new pilots. He did not act like a hero. He worked hard and spoke simply, showing them mistakes and teaching them how to think during pressure, not just follow instructions. Some soldiers who first laughed at him now listened closely, eager to learn the strange and creative methods of flying that had saved them all. Leora often visited the training grounds. Sometimes she watched quietly from the shadows so that the men could focus without worrying about her presence. She liked how Ethan treated everyone equally, as if rank did not matter. He believed any person could become strong if they were willing to learn. One evening, after the training session ended, she walked to him as the sun melted into pink and gold behind the towers. "You seem restless," she said. He shrugged, wiping his dusty hands with a cloth. "Restless people stay alive. Calm people get surprised." "Haven't you done enough already?" she asked. "You fought for us when you didn't have to." Ethan looked up at the darkening sky. "Fighting once doesn't mean the peace will last. Power needs to be rebuilt as much as cities do." She nodded slowly. "Maybe that's why you came here, to teach us that peace needs strength." He gave a small laugh. "Maybe. Or maybe I just got lost again." And that made her laugh too. The sound filled the yard like music, soft and human. A few days later, new ships appeared near the edge of their space, smaller than the last attack fleet, but clearly from the same hunters. The alarms returned and tension spread through the city. But this time, the people were not frozen by fear. They had seen what courage looked like. When the news reached the palace, Leora called for Ethan. "They are back," she said. He looked at her and nodded calmly. "Then we finished what they started." Under his guidance, the defense forces prepared. But instead of hiding behind shields or waiting for attack, Ethan suggested something new. "They expect us to guard our skies again," he explained. "Let's surprise them. Let's meet them halfway." The commanders hesitated. No one had ever taken the fight beyond their safe borders. Leora made the decision for them.
"Oh."
"Do as he says," she ordered. "We cannot live afraid forever." Soon the fleet launched into the night, their engines glowing blue as they vanished into the black sea of space. Leora stood on the command deck beside Ethan as they guided the mission together. This time the hunters were not ready. The humans and Leora's soldiers attacked before the enemy could settle into formation. The skies flashed with fire and light. Ethan's voice stayed calm over the radio, clear and fearless. "Keep them running. Don't chase too far. Make them feel we're everywhere." The plan worked. The hunters panicked again, breaking apart into smaller groups before disappearing into the far distance. When the last ship vanished, silence filled the cabin. The crew began to cheer. Leora turned to Ethan with her eyes shining. "It's done," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "For now." Songs filled the air, calling Ethan's name, praising the courage that came from a world of storms and struggle. But Ethan slipped away from the crowd. He went to the same quiet balcony where the princess often stood, looking at the stars. Leora found him there as she had before. "You always choose silence over celebration," she said softly. "I just like to think," he answered. "Noise fades. Thinking stays." She stepped closer to him, her voice gentle. "You changed us. You changed me." He turned to her with a hint of a smile. "You didn't need changing, princess. You only needed reminding." "Reminding of what?" "That strength isn't given to some and denied to others. It grows when you face what tries to kill you." The wind moved her hair across her face, and she brushed it away. For the first time, she did not look like a ruler, but like a woman who had discovered both loss and courage. "So this is what being human means?" she asked softly. Ethan looked at the stars. "It's messy, it's painful, but yes. That's exactly what it means." The city lights glowed below them. The world that used to see her as untouchable now sang of new hope. The people were stronger, braver, and ready for any challenge. They had learned from the one they once called a beginner how to stand tall when fear came near. When he finally turned to leave, Leora stopped him. "Where will you go?" he smiled. "Wherever the next storm waits. That's where humans belong." As the engines roared to life, her heart filled with pride, sadness, and wonder all at once. That night, people across the planet told stories of him around fires and lights. They said there was once a man from a tiny blue world who stood before darkness without trembling, and because of him, even the fiercest hunters of the stars learned fear. And high above, somewhere among the constellations, Ethan Cole flew onward, one small human carrying the strength of all mankind into the endless unknown.